Hello, sisters, and welcome to the Sisterhood and Faith podcast. This is Jenni O'Brien, your host, and I am so excited you are joining us today. You are in for a treat today. Today's guest was a financial service executive and a business owner that gave it all up to become an author, speaker, and podcaster. She is the founder of Kind Families, a community of people who love kids with invisible neurological differences. I want to give a warm welcome to Kari Baker.
Well, welcome, Kari. I am so excited that you're here today. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jenni. I'm super excited too. It's just wonderful to see your beautiful face.
Oh, you too. I love this that we can do this remotely. This is just so cool. So cool. Well, not only did everything that I told you about Kari, but I just have to tell you how we reconnected. We had a Sisterhood and Faith little gathering, a hike, maybe, a couple months ago. And there's this beautiful woman that shows up and I recognize her, but I don't recognize her. And all of a sudden she's like, Jenni, it's Kari. And I'm like, she's like, from college. And oh my gosh, Kari. I have not seen Kari in what has it been, 30 years?
It was 30 years. And, the crazier thing with that is that I found you on Facebook, I think, because someone in your circle that's in my circle, tagged you or something. And I was like, Jenni O'Brien, I think I know her, and saw the Sisterhood and Faith thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. She's doing this faith-based encouragement and there's a hike. And so, it all worked out. God just kind of planted all these little seeds that wound up coming together. So
yes. And we met that day and we caught up, and it was just such a blessing. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, starting this Sisterhood and Faith, that was my purpose, is just bringing women together, faith-based, and have those connections, and to literally reconnect. We hadn't seen each other for 30 years, and it was like we'd never left each other.
Exactly. We couldn't get away. I was like, I know I have to leave, but we just kept chatting.
Yes. So, and not only was she my friend, she was my little sister in my sorority.
Yeah.
So, and it was just a God thing that once we started reconnecting, Kari has just done some just amazing things, and that I just can't wait for her to tell her story. And it's just something that I'm just so proud of her. And I didn't even know anything about it, what she's doing now. So we're just going to let her share what she's been doing. She has written a book that is amazing. It moved me. I was able to read it over the weekend. And it's just so moving. And the story of how, I'll turn it over to you, Kari, but just why don't you tell us a little bit what it's about, how you started, and I'll let you, because I'll mess it up. So go ahead.
Well, so I was always in the finance field. So from the time I graduated from college, from U of A, for 30 years, I was in finance and thought that was always where I wanted to be. But I had my son in 2011, and in 2014, we just started to notice some differences between him and some of the other kids in his preschool class. And at the time, it was just, everybody was telling us, oh, he's just a boy, oh, he's just 3, oh, this is, everybody develops at a different pace and those kinds of things. But I think Mama Gut kind of told me that it was a little bit more than that. And the interesting thing is, at the time, I really didn't have a faith. I didn't have a strong faith. I grew up Presbyterian. We just went to church because I think that's what my parents thought good people did. Good people went to church on Sundays, right?
Right.
And so I had some of that base knowledge, but that was it. And so as it turns out, all of these little things were swirling around in my head about what was going on with Brady that was so different from other kids. He would not want to be with other kids at play dates. I would take him to play dates, and he would just take off and try to be as far away from the other children as possible. And I used to joke that I needed to bring a babysitter to play dates because I never got to chat with the other moms, which is what I really wanted to do.
I know. That was the time we really enjoy, is just being with other moms, right?
Exactly. That's when you bonded. And I was just constantly chasing him. And he had some really unusual obsessions, I would say, that, and again, people were like, oh, every kid has his thing. But for Brady, it was the Wiggles, and he was completely obsessed with the Wiggles. The younger moms that are listening might not know about the Wiggles, but
we know the Wiggles.
So, eventually, there were a lot of things that piled on, and I came home from dropping him off at preschool one day. And there was a magazine on my desk, and I was having trouble focusing on work. And I just picked up the magazine. And to this day, I think God put that magazine on my desk and, gave me the nudge to open it, because I opened it up and there was an article about a woman in there whose son was diagnosed with autism when he was in his early 20s. And the way that she described her son, Dave, was so similar to how Brady was at that age. She described him as a younger child as having a really hard time making friends, having a hard time sitting and complying, and having big emotional reactions to things. And at the bottom of that article was a quiz that I could go online and take. And I didn't think anything of it, but I took this quiz, and Jenni, I answered 15 out of 15 questions. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And
I can imagine.
It just
reading it in your book, like my stomach sank just thinking about, one, like you said, the flyer that comes home that we never read, but you read. Like,
I know.
God put that in front of you to read. And I could feel what you were going through when I was reading your book. So continue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, it was just, I think God, I kind of joke that sometimes God was like, oh my goodness, I'm giving her so many hints. I just need to hit her upside the face with this so that she can start doing something about it, So anyway, of course, the quiz came back saying that I should have Brady evaluated for autism spectrum disorder. And, at the time, I didn't know anybody with autism. I didn't have any friends that had kids with autism. And the only knowledge that I had of autism in general was those really scary things that you see on TV or on the news about autism. And so obviously it devastated me. But at the same time, I didn't question that that's exactly what it was. Like, I just had this knowledge, and I'd almost say a peace, even though I was just so brokenhearted about it. I knew exactly that's what we were dealing with. And so then I just started hitting the ground running with, let's learn more about this. Let's figure out what therapies we have to get him into. Let's go to the doctors. Let's go to the speech, to OT, to all of these things that I didn't even know existed for little kids. And I got on this treadmill for 2 or 3 years of, I think, just in my head thinking I could fix it, thinking if I just work, just
or
work
he'll
hard
grow
enough.
out of it, or if you work hard enough that he'll,
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just, and it was there was a lot of shame that was built in, because we kept it really quiet because we didn't know how other people would react about having their child be with a autistic child. And so we hid it. We didn't talk about it. And that created just a lot of isolation, and it just kind of amplified the fears and everything that we were going through. So it really took about 3 years into the journey when God just kind of made me aware, look, you're not going to get through this alone. And I don't want you to,
Right.
And
right.
so he started really kind of nudging me to get back into church. We had tried to go to churches with Brady when he was about 2 before the diagnosis, and he just cried, like crazy every time we tried to drop him off.
So effort to go then.
It was, and it was just exhausting, and we were sleepy, we just wanted to sleep in on Sunday mornings. So we hadn't really tried to pursue church at all. And then when I really started feeling nudged, I went to my neighborhood church that's 5 minutes from my house. And sure enough, all the sermons started to just seem like they were written just for me. And, then I got pulled into a Bible study, which was, kind of crazy. Like Jenni knows, in our college community, when I told my college friends that I was going to Bible study, they're like, you're doing what? What?
Yeah.
And what happens in a Bible study, And
all those old farts are there, right?
Exactly. What do you knit? Like, what do you do? And, but gosh, those times in the study, I sat at this table with these
but
women.
you have to say, because in the book, when you walked it about being, walking in.
Oh,
into your Bible study.
I was just shocked because they weren't old ladies sitting around knitting. They were like these beautiful women that were around my age. There were some older ladies, but they were lovely ladies, or they are lovely ladies.
Yes.
And I just found myself sitting around the table and I was spilling my guts to them. And I didn't know why or how, because we'd kept everything so close to the vest. But I walk in this room with all these believers, and all of a sudden I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
And God let it flow out of you.
Exactly. And so, this is a very long way around the story, but this woman at my table said, gosh, Kari, you ought to write a book about this. And at first I kind of, shrugged it off because I was a finance person. I wasn't a writer. I'd always liked writing, and I wrote just kind of for when I'd have a big event in my life or something, I would sit down and I'd write about it. And so then I went home and I started writing, and I wrote. This is 2018, so this is actually a while ago.
Yeah.
And I just let all of the hard stuff kind of just spill out of my brain and onto the computer. And the problem was I didn't know where to take it. I dumped all this stuff out, and I let my husband read it, and he just said, Kari, this just sounds like it's hard to be Brady's mom. Is that really the message that you want the world to hear? And of course it was not. So I stopped writing for a while, but I still was just diving into faith and getting more and more involved in Bible study in the church and worship team and women's ministry and mentoring. And the more I learned and got closer to God, the more I realized what was missing from that first draft was God, and all the ways God had shown up and had shown me and proven to me that Brady was made exactly the way he's supposed to be made. He was made on purpose for a purpose, and God doesn't make mistakes. And it was a long process of me learning to shift my attention from the challenges that he has, which he does have and he will always have, and helping him with those, to really trying to focus on all the strengths and gifts and talents that God had given him. And there are so many. And that changed my whole perspective. It changed my attitude. It gave me peace. And then, the crazy thing was God also presented this opportunity 2 years ago for me to sell this practice that I'd had and this business I'd been in for 30 years. And never imagined that was even an option. I just figured I would do this job for the rest of my life. And it gave me this opportunity to finish the book, start the podcast, start doing these speaking engagements. And so since beginning of 2023, everything has been focused around kind families, which is, kids with invisible neurological differences, and really just trying to be an encouragement to families who are going through that, an educator to either teachers, to churches. I'm going out to a conference to talk about disability in the church and how churches can be more welcoming to those with both visible and invisible differences. So it's turned into a ministry and something that I'm just so passionate about. And the coolest thing in the book, though, is my son Brady wrote the foreword. So
I just loved that. I loved that. How, and tell us about that. He's a writer, right? He loves to write, and that is just beautiful. And there's just so much I want to ask you with your book, because there's just so much. But with the injury, how did you go about just present it? Because now he's 13, right? Is he 13?
He's 14 now. 14. He's 14 now. He was 13 when he wrote it. Yeah.
Yes. So did he come to you, or how did that come about that he was able to do that?
Well, it was kind of neat because as I was writing, I needed to make sure that whatever I was putting out there, he was going to be okay with. So I had him start reading, chapters, not in order or anything like that, and just making sure that he was okay with what I had there. And as we got closer to finishing the book, and I was kind of looking at the layout and how everything was going to flow, it dawned on me that the sections of the book kind of found themselves. So I had that first section that was really finding out about his autism and really struggling with it in those early years. And then the second part was adjusting to it and kind of, getting in the groove of this is what life is like. And also, this is where my faith started to build. And then the whole last section, I realized that as I wrote these chapters, there were all these just awesome stories of Brady and these accomplishments that he's had and ways that he's impacted people and, ways that his faith has developed, even with a brain that I was afraid might not be able to understand something that wasn't black and white. So as we were kind of talking through that with him at dinner one night, I can't even remember who brought it up, but we said, well, maybe Brady should write the foreword. And I will be honest, I'm a bit of a control freak, as you can read in the book. I'm a bit of a planner and a control freak. And so when we had the idea, I was kind of like, uh-oh, what if it's horrible? Then what do I do? But I mean, he wrote that in one draft. He went back to his bedroom and he came back and it was printed out and I read it and I was just in tears. And I said, Brady, this is perfect because it just, I feel like it starts the whole process of our family story with his perspective on how he sees himself and other people, and an encouragement to other kids who have brains that work the way that his does. So,
it's just everything, every chapter that I read, to me, it was just so moving from everything from the beginning where you really, the challenges, like the challenges that you were going through early on about how you even said that you pictured yourself as this mom, you were going to have this perfect family with this perfect child and you're a control freak, so you like to have everything like set up and in control. And where you finally, it took years, even till he was with 2 or 3 to even know and believe that this was the purpose, that you are out of control. Like there's nothing but God that has the steering wheel. Right. And for you to come to those terms, and I love just, knowing you a little too about your journey before that your faith wasn't as strong as now. It's just God has just pulled you on this journey and pulled you so close to him, and that you now have more peace in your life than you'd ever known. Right. And you thought that, I mean, there's just so much that's just so beautiful. And I have so many questions, but what was your relationship with God? Did we hit on this that before you even had Brady? Did you go to church? Did you, any of that?
Like I said, I would have called myself a Christian before, my whole life. I went to Sunday school, I knew I could, take all the little Sunday school quizzes and pass. And I do feel like I believed that there was a God and that Jesus was his son and that he was crucified and resurrected. And I thought that's all you needed. I thought all you needed was the book knowledge of it. And I'd had times in my life where I felt God's protection and presence, but I never felt a relationship with him. So I never felt like I was his and that he had this very specific plan for me and that, there was no mistake in any of the things that had happened up to this point. And so it took me, John 9 was actually this kind of transformational verse for me, John 9 verses 1-3, because, still very early on, I was reading this verse in one of my first Bible studies that I was going through. And it's where Jesus is walking with the disciples and the disciples see a blind man on the side of the road and say, "Who sinned, Rabbi, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And I realized oh my goodness, that's what I've been harboring in my heart this whole time is what did I do? I mean, I had fun in my 20s. Like, which part of that?
What did I do wrong?
Exactly. So, and it was this awakening. And I just felt in that moment, God tell me, you didn't do anything wrong, because the last part of that verse is it was neither this man nor his parents that sinned. He was born this way to show the glory of God. And then, it just was like God said, look at your kid. Look at all these amazing things that he can do. Look at the gifts that I've given him, and he's going to take this and do something in my kingdom with all of those things that I've given him. And even at this time, he was in a Christian preschool and kindergarten, and he was taking in some of these Bible lessons at levels that I wasn't even there yet. And so it became then a realization also with just being with other believers who are way further down the path than me, and hearing their stories and knowing that, God does show up and that he can bring peace. And it was, really then a shift from just knowing about God to just wanting to know God more, and for him to know me and to know that he's important to me, and that that the things that I'm doing now, that was one of the things actually too that pulled me away from the finance business. I just felt like we were talking about all these things in these meetings and over and over again that just in the grand scheme of things didn't matter, and so I started getting really, dissatisfied with the finance stuff for years, several years before I, finally made this jump, and knowing that he was guiding me on this path just gives me all the confirmation I need. It just makes it like not even a question in my mind that it's what I'm supposed to be doing now. So, and the question is just, where do you want me to go with it?
Yes. Well, I just love too at the beginning of the book, how you had all these talents, being an entrepreneur, being in finance, your husband being very organized, and all these things where you guys turned it into like a business for yourself, meaning, okay, you are going to come with a game plan. I loved how you guys came up with weekly newsletter for your family and how to coach and to help your son. And you turned it into like, okay, a mission in how you were going to, one, help your son at first. And now you've turned it in where you are helping others because of the tools that you have learned through this journey. And what a blessing. And your book and what you're doing is such a blessing to not only your own son. Look, it's going to get me emotional because you literally have taken something that we thought, as you know, because early on you thought, oh God, your tears in your life when you were rolling on early on when you were rolling in the kitchen with the gate up, with your son screaming in the other room, and just not knowing what you were going to do. And you have just turned this into something that's just so beautiful. And you're just helping so many out there. And God bless you.
No, thank you.
Your mission, but as what you did before, see, God was giving you those tools to be able to do what you're doing now. Exactly. And that is organizing everything that you're doing, even me calling you, okay, how do I set up this podcast? Like, Jenni, like all the things that you are just doing. And there's just so much we could talk in the book, like how God has led every piece of your journey is just beautiful.
Thank you.
But a couple things that I did want to ask you about that I just loved in early on. Let me see. I'm going to read from it says, when you are called to a situation that is foreign to us, we will feel ill-equipped, and nothing we are called to, especially the hard things, will come with a quick start kick to give us everything we need to be awesome out of the gate. We won't feel equipped because we aren't equipped. But here is the secret that I didn't understand at the time. We don't need to feel equipped to be effective. Our feelings don't drive results, our actions do. All we need is the willingness to take the next step forward. And amen, because that is with life, with everything. We might not feel like we're equipped, but we need to just take that step and literally go with it. And I just loved that. That was one thing. I don't know if you even remember, you know, that.
Oh, sure. I think we, in any hard thing in our lives, we always feel like, oh, I can't, I'm not equipped to handle this. I'm not equipped to handle this. And I guess I just wanted to put some affirmation. You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
You're not equipped to handle it. But God has a plan to get you through it. And you just need to start, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And, when you're dealing with a child that's got, special needs and you're running from therapy to therapy, and believe me, I threw some spaghetti up against the wall to see if it would work with Brady. There were some questionable things that we had him do, but because we were just trying everything, nothing that would have hurt him, of course. But,
right.
I think that just having that openness to keep moving and not get stuck in that feeling of being ill-equipped, because I think that's what we have a tendency to do, is just say we're frozen because we feel like we don't know what to do. Well, just take that next step, talk to somebody, make a phone call, get on the internet, do something that is going to help you understand your situation better.
Yes. So. Okay. What is the acronym KIND? Where does that come? Yes. Tell everybody how that came about.
So that actually came to me, again, I feel like God put it in my lap when I was writing in those early years in 2018. It stands for Kids with Invisible Neurological Differences. I was writing at the time about the invisible nature of Brady's autism and ADHD, but, people who see him on the street would never know that there's any different wiring in his brain. He looks just like every other kid out there. So there are some unique challenges, I think, with families who have kids with these invisible neurological differences, in that the expectation is different for their child versus, obviously we're so very grateful that he doesn't have a visible disability that would impair his quality of life anymore. We're very grateful for that.
Because we know how much first impressions too, like when people just walk up to each other.
Yes. And the social stuff is so hard for kids with autism. So that part, nobody would necessarily think, oh, we need to give that kid a little bit longer time to respond because he has autism, because they can't see that. They just think he's like every other kid. So kids with invisible neurological differences was what came to me, but I realized it's not just autism and ADHD. It's anything. It's dyslexia, it's sensory processing disorder, it's OCD. I had a mom reach out to me through the Kind Family's website whose daughter was in a bad car accident and she had traumatic brain injury. And it was the same kind of thing. It impacted the way she was able to speak and how she could interact with people. So it's really just, anything where the brain wiring is causing there to be a difference in the way they respond, react, the way they speak. I know with Brady, his processing time is pretty severely delayed. So me being, a control freak and wanting answers right away, I'd be like, Brady, ask him a question. Brady. And I've got to train myself to just give him the 5 seconds it's going to take him to listen to the question and be able to process it in his brain and then be able to respond. And so we just want to get people a little bit more, give them a little more grace in those situations. So.
Yes. Well, okay. So I know we got to get wrapping up this in just a minute, but how do you think you're doing today through this whole process, with now that your son's going to be going in high school, you're doing all these things that, the book and then now speaking. How are you doing as a mom for all those moms out there that might have those little ones, that an autistic child at 2 and 3 or just starting school?
Yeah.
Like what advice or where are you today?
Yeah.
With all of it?
Well, Brady has just done amazingly well. He is, we did get him into interventions very early, which is something I'm really passionate about because I think it had a huge impact on his quality of life now. So he's doing great. He's going to be in a mainstream high school next year, starting 9th grade. He still has a lot of social awkwardness and struggles that go along with that. We struggle a little bit with fine motor, gross motor. Sports are not his thing for sure, but he's super creative. He's a writer. He wants to be a film director. He's got all kinds of things that are going to take him far. And for me, I guess when I was back at, in the beginning stages of our kind journey, I never saw getting to this point. I never saw him being in high school. I was so tunnel visioned around what's the next therapy that we're going to get him to. And, and so I guess for those moms, I would just say, first of all, never underestimate what you think your kid can and can't do. And don't let anyone else tell you what they can't do. I mean, we had somebody tell us in a first training that we needed to cash out his college plan and, build a house in the back because he was never going to be able to be independent and those kinds of things. And so don't let people plant those things in your head because you just have no idea how much these kids can do. And then the other hard thing for me getting as he got older is the letting go part, because
yes, like every mother, it doesn't matter what, if they have special needs or not. Every mother, I think, goes through that at a point in the stage.
And we all want them to be independent. That's the goal. And when you've spent so many years, directing everything that this child does and training and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden now he's a teenager and he wants to grow his hair out. And you're like, no,
yeah,
I like short hair. But you have to sit back and say, okay, this is something he's passionate about. And it's something that I can let go because it's not, a game changer for anything.
Right.
And then letting him take chances, letting him, risk failing, which, for every mother, you just never want to see your child not complete something or not get in or not, just have them fail in front of your eyes. But you have to let them try those things or else they'll never experience the wins.
Right.
And the wins are the things that have been so transformational for him. He's done a couple of things that, even after the fact, I was like, I can't believe I let him do that.
Yeah.
But they worked out to give him this knowledge that he can do hard things and he can do amazing
I think
things.
That's with any child, every parent. I think that is what's so important. I actually just talked to my sister-in-law about it yesterday, that children need to go through failure. They need to know what it's like, because when they get into college or later out of your household, they need to learn how to go through that emotionally. It doesn't matter if they're special needs or not.
Right.
Every child must experience failure while they can, and learn how to cope with it at an earlier age.
Right.
I just think that's just so important.
Totally.
But I know we've I'm trying to keep it, not too long today, but oh my goodness, Kari, there's just so much that we'll definitely have you on again.
I love that.
I'm just so happy that we've reconnected our sisterhood.
Me too.
One question I do want to ask you is, because this is all about sisterhood and bringing together women, what does it mean to you, especially as a special needs mom that has a lot? I know, especially when your son was young, you didn't have the time. You worked, you did all of this, plus trying to balance your relationships with other women, because we know how important it is to foster that into. How is it being a special needs mom? Is that what you're supposed to say? Is that proper? What are you supposed to say?
The phrasing is so, everybody's got their own viewpoint of it. I don't consider myself a special needs mom. I call myself an autism mom just because he has autism.
Yes. I sometimes think that, okay, I'm not supposed to say an autism. So I'm so glad we're talking about these things, because people just don't know.
And everybody's different. My son is, he likes to say that he has autism. He isn't one of the kids that likes to call himself autistic. He just says he has autism. And everybody is different. And you just have to kind of go with the flow and hopefully give people grace. But
yes. So what about with your friendship? How is that? Has that affected you a little bit, or is it? What do you think?
Well, early on, I found a group of the autism moms, and that was life-saving for me, honestly. And that happened a little bit before my faith journey started, but it was the place where where they understood the language. You know, I felt like I was speaking a foreign language with everybody else who didn't have this autistic child to live with. And finding them was life-saving. But then also my Bible study gals, like I've got the sweetest friendships with these ladies in a small group that all just love the Lord, and you know, we all support each other in all the things that we do, where we feel God is leading us. And then I've got my bestie who I was pregnant with, and our kids are the same age, and they call each other cousins, you know, because Brady doesn't have any brothers or sisters, and he doesn't have any cousins that aren't grown. And so, you know, they're like the family that you pick.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I've just been so fortunate. And of course, on my sorority sisters too from college, that we still travel together and we see each other all the time. So I've been really
beautiful.
blessed with that.
Well, Kari, thank you so much. It's such a blessing that we were able to reconnect at one of the hikes, Sisterhood and Faith hikes. And I just am so proud of you. And I'm so excited about your journey with this, because I know that now you're traveling a little bit with it.
Yeah.
You have your own podcast, and I'll put that in the notes, you know, so people will know.
Sure.
So thank you so much, and God bless you, and I will see you next time I'm in Arizona.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jenni.
Okay, bye-bye.